Friends, welcome to the What's Right show. Glad to have you here with us this beautiful Thursday. Lots to go over today. Oh my gosh, friends, I know that I saw this news overnight, a terrible attack by Russia on Ukraine, on Kiev. And the president's reaction getting criticized by the media. Trump had, for the first time in a while, some unkind things to say about Putin. And of course, the media's reaction is, well, about damn time, and you ought to do something about this. But it's also, all of this is happening. It's not in a vacuum, folks. There's crazy stuff going down in India. We have a trade war with China. We have a fractured relationship with Europe, which is not Trump's doing. And I've got to be very clear about this. The Europeans are in the final death throes of globalism. They are going through fits of resistance to their own version of Trumpism, where countries wish to regain their sovereignty and pull away from the increasingly tightening grip of the European Union. Something is afoot in the world. Now, Trump, you got to admire the guy because he is fighting these battles on multiple fronts, and he's got a lot on his plate. If you think about it, right? At the very same time that Trump is trying to fulfill his campaign promises to deport illegal immigrants, particularly those with criminal backgrounds, getting thwarted in the courts at every turn. Resist, resist, resist is the mantra of the libs, who are, of course, some of them in very powerful positions in courts, in bureaucracies, within Trump's government itself. Trump is also dealing with a trade war. Now, you'll say, and some do, criticisms of this, well, it's of Trump's doing. It's not of Trump's doing. Even people who don't like Trump, who are smart and understand the economy, acknowledge that the trade deficits that we had with China and other countries was unsustainable. We can't continue going down that road. Trump's just the first guy who's willing to grab it by the horns and go with it and tackle it. No previous president has had the balls. And then I would say, as another large component of this, being the situation with Ukraine. Now, Ukraine has to get sorted out. It has to get ended because America and Europe need to get back to mending fences. And for as long as the Ukraine war continues, okay, it's going to be a challenge. Now, I'm starting to be convinced that there is someone behind Zelensky urging him to not take any deal that is proposed by Trump. And this is what's really pernicious about it. There is a sense that I have. Pernicious is the word. It's sinister, actually. Sinister that there are people, powerful people, countries, perhaps governments, politicians, certainly, who are urging Ukraine to fight on. And at the same time, none of these actors clearly are willing to devote the resources to decisively put power in Ukraine's corner. No, I don't care. Like if you're listening and you say, Sam, I support Ukraine, I'm with you. I don't want to see a situation where Putin grabs the country. I'm with you on this. But explain something to me. Why is it that the very people who are urging Zelensky to continue the fight won't give him what he needs to decisively turn things around and bring some pain to Russia? Even under Biden, this was the problem. Biden gave Zelensky a ton of money. We certainly gave him a lot of resources, military equipment, etc., but put handcuffs on it at every turn, limited him. And I'm convinced, if you'll permit me to be a touch cynical, that this conflict was intended to drag on in order to continue to keep the various globalist entities and European Union powers in the catbird seat. As long as they've got this emergency, as long as they've got this war going on, they can exercise certain powers. And these governments are all hanging by a thread. Look at the extent to which these European countries are fighting to keep the status quo. France arrested the leading presidential candidate over nonsense charges, right? Marine Le Pen arrested and charged with using what? Using her budget that was allocated for in her party for European ministers on domestic ministers. So the people that work for the branch of the party that go to Europe, go to Brussels, versus the people that go to Parliament in Paris, France. Somehow there was money spent from one side to the other side. Everybody does it. I've spoken to my friends in Europe. Everybody goes, hey, this is so common. If they audited any single political party, there would be crossover because they share resources. It's some of the same people in the same building. There's nothing, this isn't some massive fraud. This isn't her taking money for personal use. It's literally accounting, errors. But they decided to stick it to her because they have to stop her. I don't want to get too stuck on Maria. I'm just explaining that this is the extent to which the globalists and the liberals there in Europe, the Democrats of Europe, if I can put it in those terms, are fighting the reform, France first, Italy first, Germany first candidates, like the AfD party in Germany, that is, has had literally the ruling liberal class there has moved to invalidate the results of certain elections just to prevent the AfD from getting more seats. So would these same people be pulling strings behind the scenes to prolong the Ukrainian war just so that Trump doesn't A, get a victory, and B, so the war is continuing and distracts the European population from their own troubles? And I think that's perhaps an oversimplification. Really, what's happening is as long as they've got Russia as a bugaboo, then there's a conflict, and the government is fighting it. We're doing something about it, say the European globalists. Meanwhile, China is on the periphery looking to take advantage of the situation. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if it's China in some part pulling some of these strings. We are atop a powder keg. And at the same time, when, conventionally, right, when things are very delicate and when they seem to be spinning out of control, we start throwing out phrases like, boy, aren't we close to World War III? Now is the time for decisive leadership, bold moves, and fearlessness. I can't even imagine, friends, where we would be today if Kamala Harris were president. And for everybody out there saying, well, Sam, yeah, but she wouldn't have started a trade war with China. And our enemies would be taking us to the woodshed right now. Trump is coming in and reorganizing. This is going to not be, first of all, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to go easy. But I also think it has to be done. And it starts, the fundamental thing here for me, I almost think the linchpin to success of everything is ending the war. That's why Trump is pushing on this. Now, I don't know what Trump is doing behind the scenes. I suspect that Trump is making some very, very strong and terrifying threats to Putin right now. I believe that behind the scenes, and the media would never report this because the only analysis that I have here is that Trump has to end this in order to block China from Europe and to refocus the European patriots on fixing their problems. So Trump can make a trade deal with Europe, further isolate China, put America and the American economy in proper standing, and create a framework by which to actually bring the Chinese to their knees. And so to that end, I am certain Trump would be willing to do just about anything. And for his part, Putin, of course, understands that Trump wants the deal and so is pushing this as much as he can, which explains, of course, the terrible raid and bombing that occurred overnight. One of the most, I believe, maybe the most bloody attack on civilians since the beginning of the war. So absolutely horrendous stuff. So Trump did hold a press conference. He said something along these lines. When we come back, I'll play it, because he's giving some clues what he's doing behind the scenes. And it matters. All of this matters to us because, unfortunately, it is a big planet, but we are connected to it. Our economy, our safety, everything is interconnected. And one of the most important things that Trump can do in this term is to block in and prevent China from spreading its influence militarily and economically. We, for too long and for too far, have financed via this trade deficit China's ascension. And this must stop. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam and Ash 702-820-1234 because you deserve what's right.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian. That's me. My email, sam@whatsrightshow.com. So here was Trump at the White House today, of course, getting asked by a reporter what his thoughts were on Russia bombing Kiev overnight. Quite a few casualties and scores of people injured in this bombing. So here's what Trump said, and I just pay close attention to this because if you listen to the mainstream media, if you pay attention to what they're saying, it's always Trump is, a little puppet of Putin. And it's not the case, and you know it.
Things will happen.
Mr. President, why are you not putting more pressure on Russia? I know a lot of Europeans...
Putting a lot of pressure. You don't know what pressure I'm putting on Russia. They're dealing. You have no idea what pressure I'm putting on Russia. We're putting a lot of pressure.
Can you maybe tell us that?
We're putting a lot of pressure on Russia, and Russia knows that, and some people that are close to it know, or he wouldn't be talking right now. The Prime Minister understands that better than anybody. He wouldn't be talking right now. He's talking, and we're putting a lot of pressure. I think he wants to make a deal. We're going to find out very soon, but it takes two to tango, and you have to have Ukraine want to make a deal too, and they're being hit very hard, and I do believe they want to make a deal.
Let me translate this for you. Trump doesn't talk about what he's doing unless he wants to talk about what he's doing. This is if you go back to 2015, 2016, when Trump was running for president, he would criticize Obama and actually George W. Bush as well, saying that, whenever they would threaten something, they would come on television and explain exactly what it was that they were going to do. And revealing, of course, your positioning and your strategy to the public is not always beneficial. Remember that Putin wanted once upon a time when Trump was president in his first term to invade Ukraine. Trump received credible intelligence of that desire that Russia had, that massing troops at the border, etc. And he issued to Putin, an ultimatum. And Trump told him literally, I'm going to bomb Moscow. I will bomb Moscow to smithereens, Vladimir, if you cross that line. And it was reported in the news at the time, and the media was criticizing Trump because, of course, somebody leaked it. The White House back then was full of moles and Trump-hating, TDS-afflicted bureaucrats. So the word of it leaked, and the media, of course, heaped scorn on Trump at the time, saying such language would lead to World War III. But it didn't. Now, I've always explained that this is the difference between the way Trump is and the way Obama was, Bush was, and Biden certainly was. That he got a lot done simply by coming across as irrational. In business, let me tell you something, very difficult to get a deal done with someone who is irrational. If you can convince your opponent in a negotiation that you're crazy, you will get more in that negotiation. That is 1,000% true. Now, Trump's asset here is that he is willing to blow things up. When you look at the trade deal, no U.S. president was willing to go toe-to-toe with China. Why? You saw the kind of blowback Trump was getting and is getting, continues to get, over the trade war. There are a lot of smart people around who somehow have suspended their intelligence and are criticizing Trump around the clock simply because their investments are down. A lot of people are losing a lot of money, particularly people that are close to Trump. It's taking a toll. And the Democrats are doing everything to stop everything Trump is doing at every turn. And so Trump, as soon as he, does one thing, he's got 10 different reactions coming at him from all sides. I don't know how he does it. But what's important to note here is that this issue with Putin and with Ukraine is coming to a head. I believe strongly it's going to get resolved. I also think that Trump holds some power here to influence Putin. Trump could threaten to enter the conflict. Does Trump want to do that? No. But is he loco enough in the eyes of the Russians to perhaps, running that gambit? Is Trump weeks away from holding a press conference saying, listen, this is it. I've told Putin, here's it. We're gearing up, sending, carrier groups over. I mean, Russia's army is a paper tiger. Nuclear bomb. You think Putin's going to go nuclear over a sliver of land that leads to Crimea? Putin will blink because Putin's universe is hanging by a thread. And the craziest thing about Democrats is they ascribe far more power and omnipotence to Putin than he actually has. It's illusory because for the last 4 years under Biden, a little bit less, 3+ years under Biden, every time that Biden gave Ukraine anything, gave Zelensky anything, it came with conditions. Well, you get this missile, but you can't shoot it into Russian territory. You get this piece of equipment, but we're going to detune it slightly so you can't use it offensively, only defensively. What kind of a fight is this? This is nonsense. And it convinces me that the left, both here at home and in Europe, very perversely, might I add, never wanted Ukraine to actually win. They just wanted this to drag on. Here domestically, because Doge has uncovered all the money that was flowing into Democrat coffers. This thing was a giant money laundering operation. And in Europe, the same, plus they need the tail to wag the dog over there to distract, the restless natives. Meaning the patriots that are rising up against these terrible, really terrible, odious regimes. I mean, do I have to repeat how bad it is in Europe? Forget Marine Le Pen, the presidential candidate in France got arrested. Think about all the regular, mom and pop people who are getting rounded up, 6 a.m. in the morning by the, Gestapo in Germany. It's back for things they wrote on the internet. Same in England. People are getting arrested for displaying the British flag. It's triggering. to the Muslims, it's triggering to the migrants, it's triggering to the left. So a display of the English British flag, the Union Jack, deemed a hate offense. I'm telling you, the world might get a little bit worse, but it's on the cusp of getting better. And a lot is riding on Trump. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. Sam@whatsrightshow.com is my email. On X, you can find me at What's Right Sam, where I posted ahead of all of the other news programs a word that Michele Fiore, former councilwoman here in Las Vegas, and subsequently a justice of the peace judge out in Pahrump, has been pardoned by President Trump. That came hours ago, apparently, just maybe 2 hours ago. Word of that. I'm going to tell you, maybe a little bit later in the program, I'll give you my thoughts on this. Of course, Michele is a dear friend, and setting aside the facts of the case here, you know, I've always believed very strongly that she was singled out for stuff that happens here in Nevada all the time, and that the Biden administration wanted to make an example out of her. There are plenty of people who have done far worse here who were treated much better, meaning they didn't get prosecuted. Now, the second thing I want to say about this is, for John Ralston and everybody else out there, oh, this is the state of things. Oh, my goodness. Oh, a convicted, 7-count convicted felon getting pardoned by the president. John, shut up. Okay? But John Ralston is a local media personality here. Shut up. Okay? And let me tell you why. All of that ship left port, whatever you want to call it, with Mark Rich and Bill Clinton, okay? And then most recently under somebody named Joe Biden, the whole pardons of his family. Come on, get the frick out of here. I like that Trump has recognized that selective prosecution is a thing. I don't know what the evidence, I wasn't there for the trial. I'm disappointed if the allegations are true. I'll put it that way. Michele's always been nothing but great to me, and I've never, ever personally experienced her do anything unethical. But the point is, when Democratic prosecutors decide to only or largely prosecute Republicans, particularly prominent Republicans, and give passes to prominent Democrats, that stinks. That's not, Lady Justice blindfolded. That's Lady Justice going around and looking for people to target. It's Lavrentiberia level stuff, and it bothers me. And then the last thing that I'll say, for those of you jubilant over this and thinking it's the end of things, Ron Ford is the Attorney General of Nevada. He is a foaming at the mouth leftist nut job. Ron Ford wants to be governor. He is going to be, I think, fighting off Steve Sisolak in the Democratic primary here in Nevada for the Democratic nomination for governor. And so he is very active right now in all things anti-Trump. I will bet you anything, and I will win, because I'm convinced that Ford, our Attorney General here in Nevada, will file state charges against Michele and continue this case and create a spectacle and get a conviction. I'm convinced that's going to happen. So Michele is not out of the woods, unfortunately, although this does spare her sentencing that was, scheduled, I think, sometime soon. Those are my thoughts on it. There it is. I gave it to you now, and and we can move on. But for every Democrat, oh my gosh, this is just beyond the pale. Give me a break. Beyond the pale was Hunter Biden shaking down some of our adversaries around the world for money, using the influence that his father had as vice president as leverage to get the cash, and then having his father, when he was president, stymie efforts to investigate it. And then when it all came to an end, and of course Trump won, issuing him a blanket pardon. I think that is far worse than anything Michele Fiore was accused of ever doing. All right. Now, I'll tell you what's bad out there, and that's the situation in India. Did you hear about the terrorist attack? This is absolutely horrifying. Tuesday, up in Kashmir, this is a disputed region that is sort of co-governed by India and Pakistan, best way to describe it. There's an agreement there. So it's a disputed group, a disputed area, and a bunch of visitors, tourists from India were murdered. 26 people, most of them men. They were attacked by what is presumed to be Islamic terrorists from Pakistan. Now, I say presumed to be because there's a gosh darn whodunit conversation happening right now in the world, and I don't know. In India, you have Hindus, you've got Buddhists, you've got Sikhs, you have Christians, and you have Muslims. In the countries bordering India, in China, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, you have all sorts of people, atheists, Taoists, Buddhists, Hindus, Christians, and of course, Muslims. Of all those people that I named, who do you think would engage in the slaughter of innocent tourists? And by the way, I'll give you one more clue that is sort of graphic, but I have to bring it up because I'm so bothered by the mainstream media saying, we don't know who did it. We don't know. Oh, we can't say it was Islamic terror. The men were singled out for murder during the attack. The attackers would pull their pants down to see if they were circumcised. So they wanted to see if they were Muslim. If they weren't Muslim, if they weren't circumcised, they killed them. Again, I don't mean to get graphic. I just am telling you that's a fact that came out within minutes of the news hitting this week, because there's video of it. And people still are saying, gee, I can't say it. You can't say it. Well, I'll tell you what India's position on this is. India is rapidly approaching a state of war, and it's 1:41 now on Tuesday, the 24th. You know, it could be just now as we speak that there is a full-fledged conflict. Overnight, the Indian government revoked Pakistani's visas, ordered that its own citizens return to India from Pakistan, have expelled Pakistanis living in India. India's downgraded diplomatic ties with Pakistan. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is I would describe him as a Trump ally. He's a very smart, shrewd politician and popular in India, cut short a visit to Saudi Arabia. He's holding emergency meetings. The suspects, apparently there are descriptions of them, the Indians, Secret Service basically, and special forces have deployed. And, this could actually lead to war. India has, fun fact, 172 declared nukes. Pakistan, 170. So this is, kind of a big deal. A big confrontation between two nuclear powers who have a history of tension. Now, what are the immediate takeaways from this? Number one, Pakistan is a despicable country. and has been for quite some time. There is, a funny thing. I was just, Robbie, and thanks for digging up, is an old Christopher Hitchens piece about Pakistan, and reminded me, and it was something that Hitchens wrote in it that he attributed to actually somebody else. And Hitchens said that he himself doubted this for a while, but he said that there was an actual, and this is true, every time Congress was about to vote on an appropriations package, the U.S. Congress vote on money for Pakistan, because we give them, $3 billion or more a year in aid. Every time we were about to vote on funding for Pakistan in Washington, Pakistan would procure magically some terrorist that the U.S. wanted. And just as a little brush up and a reminder, it wasn't a surprise to anybody that Osama bin Laden was living in a comfortable villa in, what was that? Forget the name of the town, but it was a fairly prominent part of Pakistan. It wasn't out in the mountains. He was living in a suburban area. The government knew about it, is my point. Abbottabad. Yes. Do you know what was next to? What was next to his house, literally like a couple miles away, was Pakistan's version of West Point. He was right there under their noses, and they had no idea? Yeah, right. Obama gets credit, okay, for going in without telling the Pakis ahead of time, right? That's what he gets. He gets credit for that, because if he had warned them, 1,000% the Pakistani government would have tipped him off. And this is what Pakistan does. They are a dangerous country. They are not an ally. And that the U.S. continues to pump aid to them is reprehensible. So, honestly, in this fight, India is our ally, not Pakistan. And at the same time, this regional conflict has the potential to blow up into World War III. Now, consider this. At the very same time that this, situation is brewing, so, we have to do something about what's going on in Europe. If this is why it's so important, I keep saying, for Trump to end things in Ukraine. If there can be some ceasefire, some peace. Because if we have this situation literally begin to blow up between India and Pakistan, the whole world could erupt in conflict. So, it's frightening stuff. And one thing that we have to get very real about, folks, here in this country, and I don't know how else to put this, but Islam is dangerous. It's not a religion. It's a political system. And I understand there are plenty of people who are, quote unquote Muslim, the same way that a lot of people are quote unquote Christian and just don't practice a religion and don't feel any particular adherence to their faith. But those that practice it and follow it, they are a danger from within. I believe this, and I've seen it happen in Europe. I've seen this cancer spread. Because what they want is their own political system within our political system. And it's not a particularly tolerant group of folks. As I've said time and time again, you can't coexist with people who want you dead. Quick break. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. So just in here, apparently the Pakistani forces have captured a constable from the India's border security force on the India-Pakistan border. So the first, I guess, prisoner of war, even though war has not yet officially been declared, has been taken into custody by Pakistan. Expect a reaction from India on this. So I would not be surprised, folks, looking at this, that they're I could see by Saturday there being full-blown war. It's absolutely horrifying. Who benefits from this, by the way? Maybe the Chinese. I mean, right? Well, there's where there's chaos, there is economic opportunity, obviously, and China has ties to the region, both to India and to Pakistan, no question. This would be an opportunity, of course, for the U.S. To back India. But here's I'll play here. Here's Mike Benz. This is a very good clip. In fact, this was before all of this was really going down. When was this recorded? It's a podcast on Saturday, the Great America Show with John Fawcett. And it talks about Benz talks about the tactical issues here vis-a-vis Europe. So but I think this now also gets affected by what's going on between India and Pakistan.
I believe one of the main tactical issues that the Trump admin has to thread here is the EU-China relationship.
Right.
Because this could be very, very nasty. If a new alliance map is drawn where the U.S. becomes closer to Russia, but the EU becomes closer to China, that would be a massive problem. You don't want to lose Europe on the way to patching this up. The problem is the EU blob is wholly invested in the Seize Eurasia policy against Russia.
Right.
And so we're running into that on the NATO side. We're running into that on the British statecraft side, and in the French, have just arrested Marine Le Pen, who was up by something like 11 points in the early opinion polls for 2027. She's now banned from running there. She was running on removing France from the integrated military command of NATO, just like Charles de Gaulle did before he was the plots against him.
So, again, right? China will look to wherever there is a vacuum. One of the reasons I think we want Ukraine to end, and this is going to be a giant problem mentally for the left, is we do want Russia. We want to draw an alliance with Russia. We would rather be tight with Russia and help use that relationship with Russia to block out China than the other way around. We need to pull countries into our orbit, particularly countries that are aligned with us. And I understand that, I get it. But the greatest danger ultimately to the United States is China. It's not Russia. I mean, if Russia was as scary as every Democrat claims it is, and I hear this a lot from my friends in Europe, and trust me, my parents come from a country that was actually invaded by Russia. We do not like the Soviets. We don't love the Russians. Trust me on this. But if Putin's army was as mighty as they make it out to be, why wasn't he in Kiev within 10 days? Just couldn't get it done. The military's a joke. And the problem is that now he's revealed that to the world, and they're having problems feeding the military machine the same way Ukraine is. Although they are a bigger country and they have more industrialization and they have more people to draw on. And the other component, of course, is the economy, are the tariffs, is trade. That's another variable that is up and down depending on the day. Now, when I come back, I want to explain this a little bit to tell you what Trump is doing, because there's this enormous pressure on Trump to make a deal. I don't get it. This is like, can you imagine going to a car dealership and the first thing you do to tell the car dealer, I need a car today. Sir, I am driving away with a car, whether you like it or not. If you do that, if you say that to a car dealer when you walk in, what do you think is going to happen? You think you're going to get a good deal? Or are they going to absolutely rape you on every fee, on the price of the car, on financing? You got it. You are going to get taken advantage of. Trump is a deal maker. To make the deal, you have to be willing to walk away. And you can't tell anybody that you need a deal, right? These are very important, this is very important things. All right, stay tuned. We got a lot to cover today. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam and Ash, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right show, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m., right here on News Talk 840 KXNT. So I'm getting some pushback from some of you, by the way, on this Michele Fiore pardon that Trump gave her. Let me say this one more time. I am small town, okay? Let's be honest. Las Vegas is a small place. I am, by virtue of my position, privy to understanding stuff that happens here that maybe you aren't. I talk to some high-level people. I have a lot of friends. I'm dialed in, as they say. And I can tell you categorically that there are far worse things that people have done than the allegations against Michele that have not been prosecuted. No, last 4 years under the Biden Department of Justice. I also know that the Biden Department of Justice targeted conservatives, and you know that too, right? So they went after her. And I'll give you, let's just for purposes of the conversation say she's guilty of sin and she did it. That's not my point. It's kind of my same point with Bannon. And I'm no fan of Steve Bannon. I think he's brilliant. I think he deserves credit early on for helping Trump out, but I think he's a self-interested guy, and I think he's dangerous. And he talks too much. He's a blabber. And Bannon ran his little scam with the wall, and he was raising funds to build the wall, and a lot of Americans, a lot of patriots sent him their hard-earned money thinking that he would use that money to build a wall. Well, no wall got built, and money was spent in dubious ways. I think he stole the money. I do. But I will still go to the ends of the earth to defend the pardon that he got from Trump because he was singled out because of his affiliation with Trump. Plain and simple. Don't look at me like that. No. Okay, so you're telling me that Bill and Hillary Clinton could shake down the world to the tune of, I don't know, $2 billion and skate on it? You realize that the Clinton Family Foundation was one giant fraud scheme and nothing happened to them. So don't give me this, well, Steve Bannon, this and that. I have no love lost for Steve Bannon, but this is selective prosecution, folks. That's what this is. And it irks me. Now, Michele, for her part, and I love Michele as a person, I'm just being very transparent here. Can I tell my Michele Fiore story again? And by the way, if you're from out of town, just explain. Michele Fiore is a local politician here. She was on city council. She was a great city councilwoman. That's where I met her, here in Las Vegas. She always supported everybody, every business doing things. It was really a solid councilwoman. And she then ran for governor. She had a kind of a crazy ad that she ran, got a lot of attention with her shooting, I think, were they beer bottles, Robbie? She loves her guns. It's not my style. It's not the kind of campaign ad I would put together if I was running, but well, okay, whatever. That's Michele Fiore. She ends up, then she dropped out of the governor's race, ran for treasurer in the last cycle. What is that, 2 years ago? Lost to Zach Conine, and then she then got a position, was it elected or select? I don't know, the elected position, I think, in Pahrump somewhere as a judge. It's fine. Okay. And she and when I met her, and I'll just, again, I'm very palms up about this. I met her when I very first moved to Las Vegas, to Nevada. And I met Michele Fiore because where was I? I'll tell you, I was at a restaurant somewhere with someone that was working for the city and knew her. Actually, was an attorney for the city, someone I had gone to law school with. So we met a law school friend who was Nevada-based, and, we were starting to, Ashley and I, Sam and Ash Injury Law, we're starting to meet people. Now, I had moved here to Nevada from where? From California, because I am Nevada's favorite recovering Californian. I came here from California, where I was accustomed to have every interaction with a government official result in me losing something. Any interaction with any kind of authority figure, basically in government in California, results in some kind of loss and or emotional damage, okay? That's just how it works. So I'm still new to Nevada, and Michele Fiore meets, oh, hi, nice to meet you. Nice lady. She goes, Sam, Ashley, we here in the city of Las Vegas are here for you. We appreciate you starting a business, because we did. We started our business in the city, downtown, and said, we are glad to have you, and anything you need, you let me know. We're here for you. I had to pick my jaw up off the ground. And that's truly how Michele is. I mean, and she would support events and fundraisers and things that we were doing, and just show up and help. And she never asked me for for anything weird. I mean, just, I gave her some campaign contributions over the years, but I never witnessed any kind of impropriety. So from my perspective, right, I'm not, the allegations made in this case don't add up. But even if she did it, even if she's guilty as sin, selective prosecution is the power of the prosecutor to determine which cases he or she pursues. And if you've been listening to me for a while, you know why this matters, because I say that's what makes a prosecutor so powerful. When we talk about the Soros prosecutors, okay, like the lady up there, is it in Minneapolis, in Minnesota? Guy goes in and destroys 6 Teslas, not destroys, but damages them, $20,000 of damage. And the Soros prosecutor decides to what? Not file charges. That's right. I mean, I just read somewhere that a mere week ago, some lady keyed somebody's car and charges are getting filed against her. So what is maybe $1,500 max of damage, she gets charges filed against her. But this guy, because he's a Democrat operative, used to work for Timmy Walz, governor and former vice presidential candidate, he gets to pass. Prosecutors have an enormous amount of power. They decide who to go after and who not to go after. And the who not to go after actually is the biggest power of all. There are Democrat power brokers in the state of Nevada that have gotten away with a hell of a lot more than Michele ever has been charged with and convicted of. Okay? That's what you got to understand. We have to stop being so Pollyannish and simple as Republicans and go, oh, but well, if she did it, it's just that's how it works. That's not how the left thinks. They protect their own, they circle the wagons, and then they go after us wherever they can. Now, my message to people like Michelle and others that are in the public eye, including me, we have to be very careful. We have to dot the I's, cross the T's. We have to mind our absolute P's and Q's, making sure everything is buttoned up, because there is constant risk that we will be prosecuted. This is a fact, and I've been very open and consistent about this on this program. And to all of the liberal commentators out there getting the vapors and suddenly finding their morality and thinking that this is an abuse of the pardon power, suck it. You have lost all credibility on this in the last 4 months. Absolute nuts for you to even say a word on the subject. All right, trade war when we come back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT.
The Salmon Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Greetings, friends. Great to be here with you. So yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I'm worked up about these emails that I'm getting from some of you on this Michele Fiore thing. I'll get more to it here after I got to get to China. I've got to explain to you what's going on here. You know, the Chi-Com's got up there and said, well, we're not talking to Trump. We are not talking to Trump at all. Do you see that? No, that was a thing that just happened earlier today, because of course Trump is getting up and saying we're talking to China and we have a deal. Now this is a new one. I actually believe the Chinese, maybe. Well, think about this strategically, right? What does Trump want to do? Trump wants to corner China. He wants to build and make trade deals with countries around the world and box China in. Yes? Yes. We were about to sign a deal with India. In fact, J.D. Vance went there to work out the final stages of that. And, you know, this obviously this conflict that India is in perhaps presents an opportunity for us to further solidify our relationship with India and firmly declare ourselves allies of India against Pakistan, locking India in. It's a big market. It's an important market. And if they're in our corner, it is certainly not good for China. But again, Trump wants to make deals with everybody. So I believe Trump is talking to, we know he's talking to India. I believe Trump is talking to Europe, to countries within Europe and the EU. Trump is talking to Mexico. They're talking to Canada. They're talking to a lot of countries, Vietnam, Japan. But I think Trump is not talking to China deliberately. Now, China's stock market continues to drop and drop. Well, it would drop and drop if it weren't for the interventions by the Chinese central bank and the Communist Party. They're literally buying up stocks just to artificially keep the market from crashing. Now, Trump is doing the same thing the Chinese are doing, but for free. How? Well, his enemies would call it market manipulation, but it's him going up there. Oh, yeah, we're talking to the Chinese. We're talking to them every day. We got a deal close. And what does the market do when that happens? Yay, yay, yay. And it keeps the market from sinking. All Trump has to do is say, we are working with people to get a deal done. And then every, few weeks, a deal will be announced in the future with a country getting done, and gradually good news and good news and good news, until you have enough countries with whom we can trade and do business with fairly, And then Trump goes, yeah, now I'm putting the screws to China, and it will hurt the markets far less then because we have some critical mass of trading partners with whom deals are inked. You're not going to hear this anywhere else. This is, I believe it. And so am I calling Trump a liar? Yeah, but it's a strategic lie, right? This isn't him being deceptive for the sake of deception. It's very purposeful. He doesn't want to create panic. He wants to, they're telling him, you can't create panic. You can't do that. So he's saying, yeah, we're working on it. And maybe in some level, low level, some guy is talking to some low level Chinese guy. And so Trump maybe technically isn't lying. But I'm willing even to admit that he is, and that it's strategic. And in turn, the Chinese are going, what? No. And the Chinese are incentivized to lie that the communications aren't occurring because they want to tank our market. So although I give the edge here to China on believability, I actually wouldn't be surprised at all if they are exaggerating the lack of communication in an effort to sink us. Okay? Perception is reality when it comes to markets, right? If you have a stock that is trading, you need a willing seller, willing buyer. And that is fueled entirely by psychology and how people feel, the sentiment of investors. Plain and simple. So with that said, right, where do we go from here? And I think exactly where I'm describing, I think that the U.S. is working, Trump administration is working furtively to get deals inked and signed and firmed up with as many countries, but he wants the best possible deal. And you know what's crazy? This is a net positive for all Americans, black, white, Hispanic, Republican, Democrat, independent, right-wingers, communists, everybody. And yet the Democrats, because they hate Trump, are doing everything in their power to get in the way of this and to stop this from happening. It's maddening. It really is maddening. These people, I mean the Democrats, and I mean their willing cohorts in the media, would do anything, even including selling out our country, just to spite Trump. Now, Warren Buffett, legendary investor, somebody who is very respected, obviously, in terms of investing prowess, and who is not a Republican, okay? He is not a Trump supporter. But there's a clip of him that I want to bring up here because it's back from 2018, okay? On CNBC talking to Joe Kearney. And so this is during the first Trump term talking about China. And Buffett actually says, yeah, that we have a problem with the trade deficit.
It was in 2003, Joe. I wrote an article for Fortune, actually, about the trade deficit. I was worried about it getting too large then because, again, it was getting to be 3% or so of GDP. And it wasn't specific to China at all, but it was just a question of how wise it is to let the trade deficit grow larger and larger. Because when you run when you are in effect buying more from other countries than they're buying from you, you are handing them investment funds. I mean, it's the nature. You give them little pieces of paper and they can convert that into buying. They can buy government bonds. They can buy buildings here. And Japanese bought Pebble Beach in the 1980s when they were running a big surplus. I mean, so you are giving up claim checks on our country, essentially, in exchange for having more consumption now than you're producing in this country. And so I do think that there's levels of trade deficit that bother me. I had some system that did not make it country specific. But I think the world has gotten better and better, and there's no question that countries may try and take advantage in this or that. And we've actually been guilty of that sometimes in the past, too. I don't think leaders in other countries, whether China or 100 other countries, are not smart enough to realize that it's in the interest to keep promoting trade. The more we trade over time, and we don't want it to be a question of where we import 20% of our GDP and we export nothing. Now, we could all quit working and we could hand little pieces of paper to the rest of the world, and they could keep sending us food, and they could send us autos, and they could send us all kinds of things. But eventually they have claims on all our wealth. So we do want to have policies where the overall trade deficit does not get out of hand in relation to GDP.
Yep, and that's where we are now, right? 7 years later, we're really in the soup. So Trump has to do something about this. He is doing something about this. And everybody that's crying for him to stop and cut it and that he's being stupid and this, that, and the other are really kneecapping the administration's ability to get the right deal done for the country. And like I mentioned just before the top of the hour, you get the best deal when you work at it. Trust me, I'm a lawyer. I don't take the first offer that I get on behalf of my client. I fight to get the top offer. And that's what Trump is doing here. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right show. Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian. Behind the What's Right microphone, Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email, and at What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. Okay, so let me tell you another component of the economy right now, besides tariffs, what we need to be looking at, and a lot of talk about the Federal Reserve, the vaunted independent Federal Reserve. This is the same Federal Reserve that dropped interest rates, even though indicators were not looking particularly good, right before the election to help Kamala Harris. Now the same Federal Reserve, with things in the economy signaling a needed boost. For example, inflation very much under control. I think everybody's feeling this. Prices actually dropping. The Federal Reserve refuses to do anything. So, what to make of that? Well, it's pretty straightforward. Just like when we talk about prosecutors, well, Michele Fiore was convicted. Well, a jury in New York convicted Donald J. Trump, felon. It's kind of, that's not funny. It humors me, though. It does. It humors me when the left wants to pretend that these institutions like the FBI, like the courts, okay, like the NIH, and of course the Federal Reserve are somehow, quote unquote, neutral and independent and above board and don't have any biases. It's an absurd premise. And there's a great segment on, where was this? On Fox Business, Charles Payne's program, great program. This was yesterday. Azoria CEO James Fishback basically goes, look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. Democrats dominate the Federal Reserve, and the consequences are some suspicious machinations. Listen to what he had to say.
For every one Republican economist who works at the Federal Reserve, there are 10 Democrat economists. For every $1 donated from Fed employees in the 2020 election, 97 cents went to Democratic candidates or causes. The rate cut that had no justification in fundamentals of the economy before the election was designed to throw Kamala Harris a lifeline. And now when there's a real justification with lower inflation in the midst of a trade negotiation, a real justification for lower rates, Jay Powell wants to do absolutely nothing except stand in the way. And so it's right that President Trump is calling this out. He has many options in front of him. But I just wish that Jerome Powell would do the right thing. Look at the facts. Right. Look at what his colleagues in Europe and Canada and England are doing and lower rates to support our economy in this critical transition period.
Bingo. This is exactly right. But they're not doing it because they want to hurt Trump. The same courts, by the way, that let Obama deport as many people as he wanted without a single injunction being granted, now are falling over themselves to block Trump, doing the same things that Obama was doing because it's Trump. This is what we're up against, folks. This is wild stuff. So, no, I'm just pointing this out. I think it's insane. Now the question is, can Trump get rid of him? Right? What would happen if Trump comes in and says, Jerome Powell at the Fed, you're gone. Hit the road, Jack. Don't look back. So Charles Payne, who is Charles Payne is really a great host. I love him on Fox Business. Really do. Charles Payne goes, people are a little bit concerned. What happens if we fire him? This is the exchange between Payne and Fishback on that subject.
So, James, many are concerned, myself included, at firing Powell at this very second, with the market as fragile as it is, could actually do more harm than good. Some have also talked about a shadow Fed chair. Would you be open to that?
I would be open, and I would be honored if the president would consider me for shadow Fed chair. I've been following this for a decade now, looking very closely at Fed policy and its implications, not just on the stock market, Charles, but on real America. As we speak, President Trump is meeting with the executives of companies like Walmart, Home Depot, and Target. He regularly meets with farmers, the unemployed, retirees. Jay Powell just sits around listening to whatever 400 PhD economists say, talking about racial injustice and climate change. We need a Fed that is accountable to the American people and that focuses on the real economy. To your question, I'm going to be very honest with you. If President Trump decided to fire Jay Powell right now, the stock market would panic. But at the end of the day, our founding fathers would not want us to make long-term decisions based on the short-term emotions of a highly volatile market. I think the president should consider his options. And at the end of the day, ultimately, the American people and history, not the stock market, are going to decide his fate.
Bingo. I think this is exactly right. It's not all about the market, and it is about creating conditions that are favorable for Main Street as well, for businesses that actually sell products, make things, manufacture things, build things in America. And high interest rates are a drag, of course, on that, right? If we want to get housing starts up, for example, which is a good thing because, of course, we do have a housing shortage in America, interest rates have to come down. This is one example. But as far as this being a political issue, there is a whole slew of Democrats who have flip-flopped on this very subject over the years. No one better to dig up than the very Pocahontas Warren from Massachusetts. Here are two back-to-back clips of Elizabeth Warren talking out of both sides of her mouth.
You waited too long. And the best way you can show that you waited too long and that you get it and that you are becoming more responsive to where we are on interest rates is actually go ahead and do a nice big rate cut.
Do it.
Keep in mind
rate cut.
That keeping those rates high, as he has done, keeping those interest rates so high, actually has contributed to our measure of inflation. The infrastructure that keeps this stock
now,
market
this is April
strong
2025.
and therefore a big part of our economy strong
yesterday.
And therefore a big part of the world economy strong is the idea that the big pieces move independent of the politics, that somebody is making her best decisions economically and independently. We understand that if the New York Stock Exchange, if interest rates in the United States are subject to a president who just wants to wave his magic wand, this doesn't distinguish us then from any other two-bit dictatorship around the world.
This is two Pocahontases in one clip, months apart, right? September was October, November, 2 months before the election. She's trying to help her sister Kamala. Okay. November happens, the election happens, Trump gets elected, right? December, January, February, March, April. 7 months later, she's singing a completely different tune. Oh, well, the Federal Reserve needs to be independent. look, I have to be honest with you, right? This is, how do I put this nicely, right? Trump was consistent always about the Federal Reserve needing to cut rates. Yeah, I mean, he spoke about it on the campaign trail. He was yelling at Jerome Powell before he was president. But the Democrats use institutions, use their power, use their clout, use their connections, their allies, not to achieve great things or success for Americans or America, but only for their own political purposes. I hope that's not too nasty of me to say, but it's the truth. So this is the story, right? And it sort of traverses anything that any issue that we are facing right now. The Democrats would ally themselves with China if it meant getting at Trump. The Democrats would support a gangbanger, MS-13 human smuggler, Abrego Garcia, if it meant stopping Trump. Democrats will support high interest rates if it means stopping Trump. Democrats will literally do anything just to F Trump over. And this is not cool. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. And how will people react to this? Do people see this? Are they connecting the dots? I hope so. But Trump, in order to be successful, has to overcome not just whatever the problem is at hand, not just the issue of China manipulating its currency and being in the back pocket of the IMF and screwing us on trade and violating every agreement. He also has to, in the context of that problem being solved or trying to solve that problem, he has to deal with opposition from Democrats who are essentially, right, actors or acting on behalf of the Chi-Coms, witting or unwitting accomplices of a regime that would love to see the destruction of the United States, for the U.S. to become merely a vassal state of Beijing. It's no exaggeration here. It's no sugarcoating it. It is what it is. So we have to pay attention to this, folks. We have to get real here. And these people are, I tell you, I mean, gosh, it's crazy. And by the way, there's a development on Abrego Garcia. It just keeps getting worse. And the Democrats are backing off of it. It's got to blow up in their faces sooner or later. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. More on that when we return here after the short break. Well, this update certainly is not going to help Chris Van Hollen's career. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. So the Maryland man, a.k.a. Kilmer Abrego Garcia, the Margarita Man, as I like to refer to him there after having his drinks in El Salvador, in the city of San Salvador, with the Maryland senator there last week. This guy apparently, remember I mentioned how he had been pulled over with 7 or 8 people in his car. They were, I mean, it was a suspected human smuggling stop. And, the FBI was contacted. They found out that Abrego Garcia was on a terror watch list. And the FBI, Joe Biden's FBI, goes, no, let him loose. Well, we just found out that when Abrego Garcia was pulled over during that traffic stop, that the SUV belonged to a confessed human smuggler and illegal alien, Jose Ramon Hernandez Reyes. This just keeps getting, going from bad to worse. Can you imagine? This is the guy that that the Democrats have turned into almost a patron saint of the Democratic Party. You know, I hadn't played this in a while. I know I meant to play this for a while, but I hadn't. This was Friday on Good Morning America with Michael Strachan. And this is the wife of Abrego Garcia. Her name is Jennifer Vasquez Sura. So this is the guy. This is the wife, of course, is running the GoFundMe account. And she successfully got a restraining order against Abrego Garcia and claimed in it, an official court document under penalty of perjury, that he hit her, ripped her shirt off of her, struck her, right? Very damning stuff. So she gets asked about this by Michael Strachan, and this is how the exchange went.
I know this is a sensitive question, but I have to ask it. You did take out a temporary order of protection against your husband in 2021. Were you in fear of your husband?
My husband is alive. That's all I can say.
Okay, and you know, I'm not going to push on that, apparently.
What? She's objection non-responsive. My husband's alive, that's all I'm going to say? Well, good. I think he was alive enough to have margaritas with Chris Van Hollen, so I think so. These people, this is all of this stinks. It stinks to high heaven. I think the Democrats must know it. By the way, you know who has, I know she's doing her oligarchy tours, and now has been revealed that AOC, together with Bernie Sanders, have been doing the tours via a private jet. You know, these are people that are, I mean, they're shouting about rich people, billionaires, and conspicuous consumption. And of course, climate change, stop oil. And they're, you know, putting around on a massive, you know, CO2 burning jet, which, by the way, I'm all for it. If you've got money, have a plane, fly it. Just don't be talking out of, like Elizabeth Warren, both sides of your mouth. On one hand, criticizing, you know, rich people and claiming to be, you know, fans and protectors of the environment, and then, you know, polluting. So anyway, mark my words when I tell you this, folks. Been watching AOC very carefully over the last little while. This gal is running for president in 2028. I can guarantee it. Now, does she get out of the primary? I don't know. I anticipate that the Democratic Party will have a similar showdown that they did in 2016, the primaries, in 2028. Now, you're probably wondering, Sam, what do you mean? Well, Gavin Newsom is going to be the party favorite. Well, the leadership's favorite, right? Gavin Newsom has done everything right. He has ingratiated himself to the Democratic Party apparatus, to the Central Committee, to the superdelegates. He has the political connections. AOC will be the Bernie Sanders of 2016. The test for the Democratic Party will be, will they allow a free and fair primary? Now, I suspect, you know, if past performance can predict, you know, future results to some extent, I predict that the Democrats will give it to Gavin Newsom. And then I also suspect that that will not be a candidate that the Democratic Party faithful are enthusiastic about. The Democrats' populism, and this is what scares me, right? This like blended democratic socialist, basically communism light that the AOC Democrats espouse is very popular. And I kid you not when I say, it could win in America, and it could change our country forever. And maybe the only thing we have going for us is that the Democratic Party is deeply is deeply hostile to actual democracy. You know how many times I said that back in, I mean, if you rewind the clocks, if the Democrats had allowed Bernie Sanders to win, there was a good chance that Bernie Sanders could have, in 2016, beat Donald Trump in the general. That where Hillary lost, Bernie could have won. I know some of you think that's insane, but I tell you, if I had a bet on how that would have turned out, I would have told you that Bernie very well could have become president. And look at where our country would have been. Unbelievable. But the Democrats won't let it happen. So just note, Bernie Sanders right now and AOC are out there on a Democratic Party revenge tour. And they are whipping up the grassroots of the Democratic Party via a private jet, which is obviously funny. Ha, ha, ha. But they are out there whipping up the Democratic Party and building a coalition in order to absolutely trounce the establishment people in the party come the presidential election in 2028. I know we're miles away. I get it. But when you listen to this program, I do like to have you look around corners sometimes and see things before they actually occur. So bookmark this. It will come to pass. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right Show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. Folks, I'll be back tomorrow, Friday. Be well. We got this.